Hey everyone, it's Lisa and I'm super excited to be finally starting our American Quilters Stitch Along. So I know it's been a long time since we started this or thought we were going to start this, but hopefully you have watch the video on prepping for this stitch along, and then there's one video previous to this as well on cutting your red and white stripes. So I have all my fabrics already pre-cut here, and then I have my leftover creams from cutting my stripes. I have my leftover reds. And then I have my fat quarters of blue here as well. Now the first block that we are going to make today is super easy, so it's a really nice one to start off with. Now I hope you have a nice little binder. We have this printout on my blog, lisabongean.com, and that's where you're going to get the pattern for today as well. So go there and print out your directions for block 1 or the previous getting started. Those are all there as well, and I'll go back and make sure I move them closer to today's date versus back in January when we thought we were going to start this. So block 1, here are my instructions. And I had previously cut one out because I'm going to show you two methods today on how to do your half square triangles. Now you all know I love half square triangles and I like to make them using triangle paper. But sometimes when there's only a few triangles in your block, then there's easy enough ways to do those as well. So I'm going to show you two methods. Now the first thing I want to talk about is the triangle paper. Now I have a piece here of triangle paper that I've already cut into, and this kind of just shows you what it's like. Now you are going to need 1 inch half square triangle paper for this block. And I do have a little chart that tells you if the directions say cut 1 7/8, that's a 1 inch half square triangle. So I do have a little conversion chart on my blog under the charts, quilting charts or something like that. So I will again move that up too so you have that as well. Now we only need 2 squares of triangle paper because our shoe fly block has 4 half square triangles in it. So I show you the triangle paper that you need, and I want you to know that when you cut this out, because it's in a strip and they're all nice and close together, make sure you cut into the next triangle. Leave that paper, a little excess paper on the edge, and we're just going to waste that one there. No big deal, but I don't like cutting that exactly on the line. I like to cut away that later on when I'm trimming. So in your directions, it says to cut 2 rectangles, 2 by 4.5, 1 cream or light we say, and 1 dark. So I already have those here. So when you make half square triangles, you always put the light on the top and then your paper goes on top, and that's where how we'll get that ready to stitch. Now just to confirm, we also need a 2.5 inch square of cream. That's the only other light one we need. If you're gonna not do the triangle paper, you can do another different way. You can cut 2 2.1/8 inch squares, and then we're gonna cut them in half. So I have this one already set. So 2 2.1/8, and then we're gonna trim these down to 1.5 later on. If you are a great piecer and you want to cut 1 7/8, cut them in half, sew them together, and then they're perfect. I can do that as well, but I know there's a lot of beginners here, so if you like the confidence of squaring up, this is the way you can do that with 2 2.1/8. So this is option 1, this is option 2, and I have already cut my blue strips that we need for a block, and those blue strips are 2 of them at 1 1/8 by 4 1/2, and 2 of them by 1 1/8 by 5 3/4. So that's for this block. Now, I'm going to make several quilts while we sew along here, and that's why you will see one of the quilts that I've made has a blue sashing and borders, and this one here has a cream sashing that I have little anchors in. I no longer have this print available, but it's one of those prints of mine that's been near and dear to my heart, so I wanted to make sure that went in to that quilt. And then I will do one with grunge, and who knows what else my next pick will be. But you pick what you like. If you like light, you like dark, they both are exceptional looking quilts. All right, so to get ready to go, I'm going to do the triangle method first. So I'm going to place this on top. You can pin it if you want. I usually do not pin. One of the things you have to remember to do when you stitch triangle paper is to lower your stitch length or shorten it. I always say lower, I don't know why, but we are actually shortening it. So I'm going to move from, I usually stitch a normal like just under 2 on my Juki, and I'm going to go to a 1. And then I am going to, I got my thread, I got a light thread for to do this set. When you sew a light and a dark together, you can pick either a light and a dark. So I have a light on for now. And then I'm just going to stitch straight across on all the stitching lines. There, and just like that, they are all done. Now you're going to stitch on the dashes and cut on all of the solids. So I am just going to quick zip these off. And if you need to stand, by all means stand when you're cutting. You don't have to sit. I'm just doing it because that's less that Kaylee has to focus on or move her camera. Say hi, Kaylee.
Hello. I always make it more difficult for Lisa.
No, never, never, never. All right, so just like that, they're all trimmed. And I'm going to sneak on over here. I have a little iron here in place that you flip everything paper side down, and then you just do a little steam and turn those over. Yeah, that worked pretty good. Oh, maybe not. I gotta flatten that one out. All right. Okay, so now we're going to remove the paper. So I'm going to flip them on this side. I'm going to hang on with my non-dominant hand right near the stitching. I'm going to pull this back and pull from the middle to pull the paper off. I just did 360 of these last night, so I should be really good at it. All right, so there are my perfect half square triangles. And this iron isn't my favorite. I'm gonna go over here and grab my big iron. I wrinkled them up with that little iron. Okay, so now those are done. So that's the triangle paper method. And now I'm going to take the 2 oversized squares, kind of line them up. And this is if you don't want to use triangle paper. This is another way to do that. So I'm just going to trim them in half on the diagonal. And now that my triangle paper is complete, I'm going to take off this foot and put on my 1/4 inch foot. So it's all ready when I'm piecing my block. And because I'm going to trim these down, I could have just winged that and So now all I'm going to do is run these through. Oh, go back up to my normal stitch length. And I'm going to go press these to the dark side. I don't trust that little iron. I like my big Rowenta. There. Now every one of these now is oversized. So I'm going to need to take the time to trim them up. Now however that looks for you, you can use like the lock blocks or any of that kind of thing, but I like to use a square when I'm doing half square triangles. So I look for the 1, 1 and I put that diagonal line right on there, and I'm going to trim everything to 1.5. Now my rulers here are, everything on them is a dashed line. So it's really easy to see where everything is. I'll just kind of go a little faster here. Get them ready, do more at a time. So one of the things I can talk about while I'm cutting is, for this stitch along, I'm trying to raise money for a local Wisconsin charity called Hogs for Heroes. So if you would like to donate to my cause, we would love for you to help us raise money for that. And we will have information in the description on how to do that. So as a free pattern, I'm hoping that some of you will take this free pattern and donate so we can raise lots of money for a injured vet to help recover. All right, so there are my perfect half square triangles. They're the same as those. Just move them aside. Now, get my paper out, and I just got to lay out my block. So here is my center. Here are my half square triangles, so they all point in. And then I just got to find, and in your directions it says to cut 4 1.5 by 2.5 as well from your blue. So there is my block. So I'm just going to sew this together like that. And then later on, these are going to go on as well. So those are all the components you need to stitch the block together. All right. Now hopefully I don't stitch it together wrong, right? That would be kind of embarrassing, since I said it was an easy block. But it is a little stressful piecing on camera. But we can do it. No big deal. All right, so now that I have my rows, I'm just going to kind of lay them out and I'm going to finger press them for a minute just to see which way I want to press my seams. So this is kind of a 9 patch, so I'm going to alternate my seams. I'm going to push these to the blue and these to the blue as well. So my seams should nest really nice. So back to the iron. To the blue. Now here's where I would do a couple pins just to make sure your seams are nesting nicely. Pull that back to make sure. And I'll admit, sometimes I don't pin. I'm to the point where if they're not perfect, I'm okay. Oh, I haven't threaded. Just pulled her out too fast. Check my seams. They look pretty good. All right, now I'm back to the iron. I'm gonna press both of these seams open. I have a little strip stick here that helps me do that nice and easily. Now, all right, so there is our block 1, and now it's time to add the sides. Now because I'm using light thread, if you wanted to, you could switch to a navy thread here, or just lower your stitch length a little bit if you don't like changing threads. But I don't like it when I see white thread on dark fabrics. But that's just a kind of a little pet peeve of mine. But this fabric has light in it, so it's probably not that big of a deal. I gotta remember not to talk while I'm sewing, right, Kaylee? And I'm just gonna give that a quick little finger press. Or maybe I'll try my little iron again here. Maybe he'll behave better now. And then the last two fits perfect. So when it fits perfect, I don't find the need to pin. All right, clip off my little tails. All right, so here is our block all ready. And now I just need to lay out and stitch my red and white stripes. So I'm just going to grab a stack, turn my pattern around. So I need 4 red and 4 cream of the short ones. So you want to kind of mix it up a little bit. So I like to alternate between red and blue. And the different prints as well. So 4 of those. And there's no reason why you couldn't go ahead and stitch all your cream and red stripes together ahead of time. And I also want to point out that these strips are oversized. So they're bigger than what we need. So we will be trimming them down. Kind of keep that in mind as well. So you're going to need a nice 12.5-inch ruler at some point.
Are those starched?
Yes, of course they are starched. If you watch that video, that is why they seem a little stiff, is because they have been starched. Now, as I'm looking at this, I have 2 of the same print, so I'm going to move one around here, move that one there to that one there. All right, so now I'm just going to sew these 8 strips together. I am going to press these long seams open, and that's just a personal choice. If you want to press them to the red, that is another option. And this video will be a little longer than the next ones. I will only demo the block in each ones. I won't make you suffer through making all the red and cream stripes for each block. And of course I messed up my order. I just realized I got an extra cream strip. I thought it looked a little chubby. And pressing your seams open really is fun for when you have to unsew. All right, there we go. That's the right size. And it's okay if you have a little bit of wobble there, or one of them that you cut a little too long. But now these 2 go together. And I will pin these so they match up nicely. Now when you pin, if you did have a little bit of fullness on one side, make sure you put the side that has a little bit more fullness to the feed dogs, and that will help suck some of that up. Almost done. Okay, now it's time to pick out the long red and cream strips. So I'm going to pick some of them out that I haven't used in the upper section. And if you pick one that's the same, I mean, it's really no big deal. So there are my 3 red. And let's do this one there. So see how I like to go red, blue, red, blue, red? And again, you might get to a point where you can't do that because you don't have enough strips left over, but it's okay. All right, so now I'm going to stitch all of these together on the long side. Again, pressing the seams open. I kind of start it, give it a little finger press. And because they're starch, that works really good. Kind of remembers that I pressed it open. All right. Before I forget, I just want to point out that my sewing machine has a thread cutter on its foot pedal, so I can cut without picking up my scissors. I can move my presser foot just with my knee. So a lot of these things are very helpful for quilters. And remember, when you are pressing, just try to press. Don't try to iron with any force. Just lightly press and let the weight of the iron be enough. All right, so now all I have to do is stitch this one to this one. And because this is a nice straight edge, I'm just going to give myself a nice straight edge here ahead of time. Although I probably could have done that later on too, but and don't worry if it looks like your stripes have a little wiggle to them. That'll all even out after it's done, quilted, washed. So now I'm going to trim up my block to 12.5 inches. Put that on that nice clean edge here. And just a little fuzz on that edge. And then I'm going to do the top. I'm not going to cut that little bit of a, I must have ironed it just a little too, but that's going to all come out when I sew that to its sashings. But there you go. That's our first block.